Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
What a momentous night. Again in the United States presidential race, a race which has broken all the normal rules of politics and delivered a succession of surprises. In last night's New Hampshire primary, the latest step in the contest to win the party nominations, two sweeping victories for the outsiders, Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. For Hillary Clinton, it was another humiliating defeat. So too for another familiar name, Governor Jeb Bush. Both left trying to convince supporters they would regain momentum as the contest continues. Our Washington correspondent, Kylie Morris, is in New Hampshire. Kylie.
John, this was a big, bold night for American politics, one that people here in New Hampshire and indeed in the rest of the country will really be talking about for many months to come. The night that voters, by their own definition, sent a very powerful message that politics as we know it is over in America, that the status quo, the establishment, no longer serves their interests, that they would prefer, let's face it, a curmudgeonly leftist from Vermont and a brash billionaire from New York City. It doesn't matter whether your name's Bush or Clinton, political experience doesn't really count. It's all about how real you are and to what extent you promise to transform the country. Now, in terms of numbers, they were brutal. Bernie Sanders took down Hillary Clinton by 20 percentage points across nearly every demographic group, blowing apart this idea that he really only has narrow appeal. Donald Trump's support was double that of his closest competitor, John Kasich, in the overcrowded race where establishment candidates still are stepping on one another's toes and stealing the votes away from one another, but not from him. In short, this feels like the night that changed American politics forever. The winning margins were so great that even before the polls closed, voters were lining up to celebrate their upending of politics as normal. It was the night of the insurgent outsiders, a socialist called Bernie and a billionaire called Donald.
Trump is the new Margaret Thatcher. You like that line?
I like that line. I like that line, but explain to me how it works. How is he the new Margaret Thatcher?
She was the Iron Lady. He used to be the Iron President. He comes out just like Margaret Thatcher. He says exactly what he means.
Inside his victory party, the real estate mogul celebrated a win so big he'd wowed even himself.
Oh, wow. Wow, wow, wow. So beautiful, so beautiful.
After thanking his family and supporters, Trump went into hyperdrive with the kind of promises that won their favor in the first place.
I am going to be the greatest jobs president that God ever created. Remember that.
America wants a businessman as a president. Donald J. Trump is the man for the job.
But Democratic voters think it's Bernard Sanders who's the man for the job. The Vermont revolutionary took to shooting hoops with his grandchildren while he waited for his opponent, Hillary Clinton, to concede. Just the kind of unguarded moment that persuades his supporters he's real in an age of manufactured politics and on target to change America from the ground up.
Because of a huge voter turnout, and I say huge, we won.
With his victory, Bernie Sanders becomes the first Jewish American to win a presidential primary. His success punctures the establishment politics of the past. More women voted for him than voted for Hillary Clinton.
It is just too late for the same old establishment politics and establishment economics. The people want real change.
I know I have some work to do, particularly with young people, but I will repeat again what I have said this week. Even if they are not supporting me now, I support them.
But Hillary Clinton needs them more than they need her, and her message isn't winning them over. Today, she's brought in new advisors, presumably to arrange the comeback she promised last night.
And we've learned it's not whether you get knocked down that matters, it's whether you get back up.
Over at the establishment's Republican headquarters, the heir, increasingly unapparent Jeb Bush, was picking himself off the floor too. Perhaps he was thinking about the $150 million spent to secure fourth place.
Jeb Bush!
Really, Jeb Bush's campaign should already be dead in the water. He spent huge amounts of money for very few votes. But the hope here is that this result means that, hey, he might even be the guy to lead the fight against Donald Trump.
And while the reality TV star is still doing well, it looks like you all have reset the race, and for that I am really grateful.
While the establishment reaches for the reset button, those once least likely go on to the next round emboldened, in favour, and right where they need to be. Now, from here in New Hampshire, the candidates go on to South Carolina and to Nevada, which are very interesting places for two important reasons. Firstly, in Nevada, there's a very big Hispanic American population, and in South Carolina, of course, a big African American population. Much more diverse places than New Hampshire and Iowa, where the caucuses were held last week. So it's a real test for the staying power of the Clintons. For example, the Clinton family brand has always done very well among African American voters, but perhaps Bernie Sanders can change that by reaching out to young black voters. And Donald Trump, how will he play in South Carolina? Will the Bush family brand work to try and encourage people to come over to his side? But we're going to speak. Last night I spoke to Joy Reid, the political commentator, just as those results were coming in. When Bernie Sanders made his announcement and Donald Trump made his announcement that he was running for president, I got a sense that no one in the American political firmament imagined that we would be here tonight.
Yeah, I think that Donald Trump was seen as somebody who was doing a candidacy just to further his entertainment interests, that it was really a big publicity stunt for The Apprentice, his TV show. No one took it seriously. Donald Trump has run for president before. I don't think they understood that Donald Trump had tapped into and figured out sort of an opportunity among a part of the Republican electorate that was really angry about things like trade deals, really angry about immigration, and really angry at the Republican establishment. He figured something out, I think partly because he's an entertainer. I think on the Sanders side, the same thing happened. He ran for president. I think Hillary Clinton and her team saw it as something, be a good thing. It would give her a little bit of a raise. Sanders is seen as somebody who would never really be a true competitor to her. And so I think they didn't take him seriously enough. And then when they realized he was right in their rearview mirror, then I think that their overreaction to him actually made things worse.
So how do we explain this to the rest of the world, Joy? What just happened, in the sense that, you know, is it a matter of, look, this is a bit crazy, but come back in 6 months' time and it will be more kind of politics as usual here? Or is politics as usual finished in America now?
I think politics as usual is finished in part because the sort of reality show age has now come upon us in politics. But I have to say, what's happening in the United States has happened in Europe, has happened in Latin America as well. What you have is, during a time of economic stagnation that comes right after a huge economic depression, really is the way it felt to most people throughout the world, the response to it in Europe was austerity. And what did austerity produce? Really sort of left-wing movements and people wanting to go in a socialist direction to counteract really severe austerity. I think that's happened all over the world. It hasn't happened in the United States as rapidly, and I think we've had a delay in it because we didn't do as much austerity, because the Obama administration did more spending.
Responded in a much different way.
Responded in a much different way. Our recession was shallower than the one in Europe. It didn't last as long. The recovery came, but it wasn't so broad and so dramatic that people feel now we have prosperity. People are still frustrated. So I think a lot of the built-up residual frustrations are making our moment that Europe has had, that Latin America has had, we're having it now.
Joy Reid, the commentator, political commentator, talking there with Kylie Morris, concluding her report from New Hampshire.
I've been getting away with it all my